Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Our friend Nona Love writes in and says, Ramsey, I was curious. What type of injuries can professional fighters fight through? What injuries are more painful than others? Broken ribs, dislocated joints, concussions, bruised muscles starting to give out, maybe blows to internal organs. I'd like to hear your thoughts. All right, what type of injuries can professional fighters fight through? Listen, as long as the lights are still on, you can keep going. Meaning, as long as you're still conscious, you can keep going. Provided you're also able to stand if the other guy is not on the ground with you. If he is on the ground with you, cool. Twist him up into a human pretzel and beat him up. But if the lights are still on, you can keep going. But your second question, what injuries are more painful than others? Broken ribs, those can be pretty painful. If you don't move, you don't really have to think about it, but as soon as you start moving, yeah, that gets pretty annoying. And the thing about a broken rib, you can't wrap it up. You can't put it in a cast. You just have to deal with it and nurse it until it gets better. Dislocated joints, I've had that. Dislocated the shoulder fairly recently, and it's painful, sure. But I could definitely fight through it. In fact, my sparring partner, after he did this takedown, dumped me on my shoulder that dislocated it. We kept going for about 10 minutes. Until he recognized there was something wrong with my shoulder, and he stops. He's like, why did you keep going? I was like, wasn't that bad. He's like, your shoulder is dislocated, man. But if the lights are still on, you can keep going, and if you're having fun, why wouldn't you? Concussions. If you're concussed, you're probably knocked out. If you're knocked out, the fight is not continuing. Bruised muscles starting to give out. If your muscles have actually given out, then you won't be able to keep moving. If they're starting to give out, you're fine. But how painful is that? It's more painful after the fact, mid-fight. It's really hard to feel any meaningful amount of pain in the middle of a fight because you're high on adrenaline. There are all kinds of chemicals running on in your brain, all kinds of processes, things you're much more preoccupied with than feeling pain. Pain is an ex post facto type of thing. Pain is something that you don't really recognize until after the fact. Man, I was talking with my wife about some scars I have on my hands. Let me see if you can see that. Now I've got some calluses there, but under those calluses I've got some scars on my hands, which are kind of hard to see unless you look quite closely. There's a big one there. There's actually some meat missing from the palms of my hands. When I was a kid, I was probably about 12, there were some neighbor kids, and they were trying to jump up to grab this fence so they could pull themselves up over the top. And I was like, I can do that. That's easy. So I jumped up, and I grabbed the fence and pulled myself up, and they were like, whoa, you can do it. That's so cool. But then when I let go of the fence, I looked at my hands, and they were bleeding all over. They were cut up. They were shredded like hamburger. It was gross because the top of the fence was very sharp and serrated, and I had slivers of wood and chunks of wood and just, spikes of wood all over, embedded deeply in the flesh of my hands. And I remember thinking, okay, don't look. As long as I don't look, it's not going to hurt. So I casually dismissed myself from my friends. I'm going home now. And I walked all the way home. And I wasn't feeling anything. My hands were shredded. And I was not a particularly tough kid. Not back then, man. I was a wimp. But the pain hadn't set in because the consciousness of the pain had not yet set in. I was still in the phase of denial. If I don't look at it, it's not real. But when I got home, I tried to wash off my hands, and then I looked at the real damage that had gone on, and my hands were all shredded up. The meat was everywhere, the skin was gone, and it was gross, man. And as soon as I saw that, boo, the pain set in. Ex post facto. So, yeah, man, mid-fight, pain doesn't really come into the equation, which is why pain compliance strategies in a fight in many ways are quite silly. It's damage you need to look for. It's damage that can incapacitate the other person that you need to look for to end a fight. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Get out there and train.